we've seen a lot and we've helped our clients make a lot. But again, more importantly, I don't like talking about myself, but for me, it's about the impact. And so I quantify it as the lives that I'm able to help through the clients that we work with. I call it impact arbitrage. So we can talk more about that in another time. I want you to think about this for a second. Are you doing any cold outreach? Have you ever done any cold outreach? I have. It can be very exhausting and inefficient, and you kind of feel like you're pulling out your hair because it takes about 6 to 12 months to get actually working. Social media posting, oh goodness gracious. It's slow and unpredictable. I'll tell you what, LinkedIn is the platform that has the best organic reach right now, but it still is slow and unpredictable. Trade shows and events, well, if you're sponsoring some, then they can be a high cost, a high effort gamble. If you're going to them, well, you got to travel, unless it's in your own backyard, but they don't come to Knoxville. So I do have to travel, and most people do. And then sales funnels, that fun little term nowadays, they can be complicated and you lose leads in the process because they're so complicated. And I think about it like Homer Simpson, Marge is looking at him and saying, wow, look at that. But on the backside, he's got things just barely held together. And that's how most businesses operate. From the front, it looks like, oh, wow, things are sparking. But from the back, oof, could be doing a little better. The reality is that most buyers don't want to be pitched, if not all. And you probably already know that, but they don't want to be pitched, especially in 2025. People want to buy from people that they trust. And I heard recently someone told me, Daniel, it's not about know, like, and trust anymore. It's about know, love, and trust. And I said, okay, there's more to unpack there. And that might be a different LinkedIn article I post coming soon, but they want to buy from people that they trust. Things need to be relationship driven. It's almost like it's a partnership economy now rather than, hey, come and buy my course, come and buy my program, or come and buy my engagement. And we'll talk about webinars in just a second. They are lead generation powerhouses nowadays. We have the stats to back that up. And data drives all decisions. And that's very important because we want to be data driven decision makers rather than throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Mhm.
So, what's actually working nowadays? Positioning yourself as an authority first and having leads come to you. And Jim talks about this all the time, but essentially how you can become known or be known in your space or your field as the go-to authority.
I like that phrase, be known.
Yeah. Yes. So, how the heck do we do this? Well, it's three simple steps, a little bit oversimplified, but it boils down to three simple steps. You need to attract the right people. You need to host, nurture, and convert. We'll talk about that in a second. And you need to repurpose and scale. You need to find something that's working and just triple down on it and keep going at it until the brakes fall off. The wheels fall off, the brakes fall off, everything falls off. And I heard recently about this concept of marketing in relation to a lightning strike. And lightning it does not take the most amount of time to find the perfect linear path to the ground. It finds a path and it goes to the ground and it strikes down as hard as possible. So I want you to think about marketing like that. It doesn't need to be the perfect system, it needs to be something that works. And it needs to be something that you just absolutely go at until the wheels and brakes and chassis falls off. And then you find something else that works.
Mhm.
So, attracting the right people, you want to do this through webinars and value add marketing assets, or what we could call funnels, for example, but value add content. So, you're seen as a trusted advisor, not a salesperson. You want to host a one to many event and automate the follow up. And you want to take your long form webinar or piece of content and repurpose it, chop it up. So, again, in the essence of time, don't worry. You don't have to take notes or anything. If you do, great. But I'm going to give you the slides, the swipe files, and all the templates after today's presentation.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no problem. So the webinar system. This is a fun, fancy flowchart because I absolutely love flowcharts to describe this type of stuff. And we have our webinar system here. it looks complicated at face value, but all it is on the front end, it's taking in traffic through various sources. And we'll talk about those in just a minute here. Pushing them to a registration page to capture info and populate your email list, sending them to a confirmation page that gets them to do something immediately. Hey, great, thanks for registering. But if you're ready to talk more about, if you're ready to investigate further, if you're ready to go deeper with me, and then everything pushes back to the conversion objective, the webinar replay, the email follow-up, the retargeting ads and follow-up. Again, this looks complex at face value, but it really is just a couple pages and how you send people to it. And I've tracked the stats over the years, and right now the webinar is winning out. You've probably heard some people say online, webinars are dead, or you've probably heard other people say webinars are the king. Well, they do get a better ROI compared to other marketing efforts, especially digital marketing efforts done over time. Not a 40x better, but just marginally better. And that's what we're all about, how we can be just slightly better. And so, because it equals ROI. So, here are a couple different ways to get more leads for your webinars. And here's a hint. I'm going to be talking about webinars throughout this slide deck, but it really is how to get more leads for anything, any funnel you're doing, or any sort of promotion you're doing. I just say webinars because I absolutely love them for conversion or a marketing mousetrap or a funnel, but it's applicable to most anything. Number one is email marketing. Most people don't email their list enough, and most people don't email their list the right way. You want to use narrative-based copy, and you want to use direct response focused copy. Two words, if you want to write that down, narrative-based, that's just telling a story or injecting personality or anecdotes into your emails and leading them on a journey. And direct response, that's taking somebody in the email and compelling them to take further action.
How important are images or videos in email marketing?
I would say you can use images and videos if you want to stick a hard number on it, 1 out of every 3 emails. I think they're great when they serve an appropriate purpose and they have relevancy, but you don't have to use images and videos. I will say this, if the email looks more personal, then it's going to have a better response rate rather than something that looks like the pet supply store down the street,
Yeah.
like a flyer from that. Next is social media. We want to utilize social media. This does not mean go out and create a bunch of Twitter, TikTok, X.com, or whatever TikTok profiles. Focus on the platform that you know your people are, your ideal buyers are hanging out on. That's most likely LinkedIn or Facebook. And just focus on that. You just focus on one platform. You can post in multiple places, but again, this is about getting a flywheel spinning rather than trying to act like a Fortune 500 company and posting everywhere all at the same time. I recently wrote a LinkedIn post about this, actually. It's the concept of doing less. You know, most business owners think that to make more, you need to add a bit more in, when in actuality, it's about distilling, taking things off the plate, clarifying, doing less to do more, essentially.
Yeah.
And I encourage you, if you want to read more about that, it's on my LinkedIn, just one of the posts there. Direct outreach is very important. This is one that most business owners don't do. And that's simply emailing one-to-one, texting one-to-one, even calling one-to-one your prospect list or your lead list or people in your network that you would like to have on your webinar or take part in your thing or your survey or buy your thing. So this is just good old-fashioned elbow grease of emailing, DMing, calling, texting, just the follow-up that yields results. And if you have a sales process that you follow and you're personally inviting people to a webinar, or hey, I'm doing a webinar over XYZ this month, I'd love for you to join, that works wonders rather than, hey, just following up, just seeing when we can get the deal done. It works really well. And I'm happy to talk more about that at a later time. Referrals and JV partners. So these are business friendships. I talked to someone recently about their business, and they're trying to figure out how to run ads for their business. And I said, well, let's not run ads. How about you go out and find 2 to 3 different companies that could promote you on a monthly basis? Because ads are going to cost money, and they had a very limited budget. I said, instead of using that ad budget, how about you save that for peace of mind, stick it in a savings account, and go out there and spend the manual time just building up business friendships. It all starts with identifying who already has the attention of your ideal buyer and then striking up a relationship with them. And is paid ads next? Yes. Okay. Paid ads. So paid ads, we all know what that is. Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, YouTube ads. I think of paid ads like gasoline, whereas referral and JV partners are like coal. Gasoline, you just have to pour it, strike a match, boom, it can get going almost immediately, and it'll burn and then it'll burn out unless you keep dumping more gasoline on it. But coal, or referral and JV partners, it takes a bit more time to get going, but once it's lit, it's going to burn for a long time, much longer than gasoline. And then your webinar registrants or your leads themselves. So don't be afraid to ask for referrals, or don't be afraid to say, hey, since you just registered for this, I'd love for you to invite your colleague, your partner, your spouse, your business associate, whatever, to join the webinar with you. You know, high tides raise all ships, and there's more to say about that. But be intentional about asking people to refer and recommend other people that they know.
Daniel, let me
Yeah.
interrupt for a second. Just leave this slide up. Uh,
Yes.
what I notice is that, we're familiar with all the various moving parts that you're mentioning. But the thing that stands out in what you're suggesting to us is that we take each one from the one-to-one contact to a self-multiplier contact, like joint venture partners,
Yes.
like showing up on other people's shows, meaning you reach their audience without having to buy their audience or buy access to it. And also, with asking for referrals and invite your friends and bring the family, that kind of thing. It's all a matter of doing the same things, but being intentional about multiplying the echo with every one of the actions you take.
Yes, absolutely. And I take these concepts from talking with some of my mentors, and also reading books from Jay Abraham. He talks about how do we make our businesses go exponential? How do we stack various things? And one of those things he talks about a lot is referral partners. How we can go to one company that can supply us endless leads, and all it takes is just one partner company, and it's a game changer. So all these things stack. We don't want to just start with paid ads. We want to start with the lowest hanging fruit, our email list, our lead list, our sales pipeline, and then we can stack these things. But in the essence of time, I want to move into the right follow up, and I want to make sure we have maybe a minute for a question or two. But the right follow up. So, follow up ecosystem is comprised of emails and text if it's appropriate. In a more B2B, business to business setting, it's going to be a little less appropriate to hammer people with texts. But if we get down into B2C, like if we're selling dog training, for example, or hey, how to do something to improve your life, then texts are going to be more appropriate. Emails before the thing, in this case, a webinar, emails after. And emails after is where most people miss the mark.
Yep. Daniel, do you know the company Story Builders?
Yeah, I sure do.
Well, Bill Blankshane, the head of Story Builders, is here in your audience.
Oh, great.
And I was recently on Bill's podcast, and I also attended just as a viewer, the summit with 15 different speakers that he held last week. And
Yeah,
one of the things I noticed about Bill's system was they were very effective with the follow-ups and the text, the last minute, hey, it's coming up in an hour, that sort of thing. So good on
yeah,
you for that, Bill. And if you've got any comments or questions to interact with Daniel, by all means, speak up. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, great that you're in the room, and great to see you on my small little screen in the right hand side of my monitor. But essentially, looking at this flow chart here, you want to follow up before, you want to follow up after, and then long-term nurture. And long-term nurture in the sense of remarketing and retargeting, but send out the emails. Send out emails to your list continuously, frequently, with relevancy as well. But you can also run retargeting ads. And I know that sounds a little complicated. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there that can help you just spin up a very simple retargeting ad, or there's companies out there that can help you with that as well. Send out text if it's appropriate. But one thing that works really well that I've been seeing in the past year and a half, um, more and more so, is physical mail. Send out packages to people if you want them to convert, if they're an ideal prospect, client, buyer of yours. Send out physical mail. So one thing I saw that worked really well was a someone sent out high heels covered in glitter to their prospects who had not converted yet, and it said, "Just trying to get my foot in the door." And it was a little bit more about the offer and whatever, but um, that worked really well. So
I,
creative with it.
just a quick little
Yeah.
aside. Craig Duswalt, who some of us know, is he's a guru, like a Grant Cardone or somebody, and he lives down here in Thousand Oaks, not too far away. I was at Craig's conference as a presenter in Dallas. He called it Rockstar Boot Camp,
Yeah.
and he told a story about having trouble getting into a client. And you're talking about a creative way with the glitter on the high heel.
Yeah.
Uh, he couldn't get in to see this guy after repeated attempts, and he knew he wanted that client. So you wouldn't do this for multiple people, but in this one instance, he went to a local automotive junkyard. He bought a door off of a Volkswagen that had been wrecked. He cleaned it up and had it shipped to his client with a note on it that says, "Crank this handle to roll up the window." And so the client got a Volkswagen car door delivered to his office, cranked up the handle, and it had a message pasted to the window. Said, "I've been trying to get your door for months now. I really have some value. I'd like to talk with you." How do you resist something that creative? He got the meeting and got the business.
Absolutely. And 9 times out of 10, it'll turn into something successful. You might not get the business right then and there, but every story I've heard about that, Jim, it's similar to that.
Yeah.
It always ended with, and they got the business because they were willing to go the extra mile, the step, etc. So,
And people tell the story like I
yes,
just did, you know?
yes, yeah. And then it has the multiplication effect because if I
Yeah.
was in the market for his services, etc.
Uh,
So,
we've got about maybe 7 minutes
okay.
left,
Yeah.
and then Joe Willard's going to come join us.
Okay.
Okay.
So that moves us into the right play, the right long-term play, and that's repurposing. Repurposing content so you're efficient with time. And you can take one webinar and create your social media post from it using, if you want to write this down, opus.pro is an AI clipping tool that I absolutely love. I've used a lot. If you already use one that you love, well, try it out. But opus.pro is one to create clips, podcast episodes. You can strip the audio from the webinar video file. Social media's on there twice. Sorry about that. Short videos to post on YouTube Shorts or even YouTube videos, and then blog posts. And there's a lot of other things you can do with one webinar too. Um, but it's essentially one asset to many pieces. And I have a framework for this of how do we create the webinar and then how do we not have a webinar system fatigue out? And it's in the beginning, take 3 or 4 different client case studies or testimonials and use that as the ingredients to your webinar. Talk through the case studies on your webinar, talk through your process and compel them to take action. And then you can chop that up into social post, a PDF, like a lead magnet type of thing, blogs, YouTube videos. It can be your keynote if you're doing speaking at a live event, a physical event, in-person event. It can be podcast episodes, but then you have your core presentation that's always being promoted, and you do monthly topical teaching style webinars. And so I didn't create this concept. It was a concept from Josh Nelson. I got it from, but do a topical or specific teaching topic webinar to your list. And that's how you also engage with people remarketing. So you're not just saying, hey, just following up. You know, you can have a newsletter or you can say, hey, I want to invite you to this webinar. So this is, for me, this is a webinar over webinars, my core presentation. And then topical teaching style is how to create a persuading call to action, how to create a compelling registration page, how to fit your presentation into a 60-minute time frame. And so it's very topical. All in all, we're trying to create a marketing machine. Assets go in the top, does its magic, and out pops high intent pre-sold leads.
Can we just buy one of those?
Yeah. So just some stats. Again, I just want to show what's possible here. It does a lot. Whether you're doing sales calls or you're just trying to sell a course from a page or you sell a higher ticket service through another mean, then it works. So I'm going to breeze through these, but here's my personal email. I'm going to lead this up and I'd love to answer a question or two if anybody has questions. Um, if not, we can talk about how the conferences or the mastermind's going.
Yeah. Bill, I'd especially like to get your observations or comments if you've got anything on this, because much of this you've already mastered as well with your own systems.
Yeah, that's a great comment. I wouldn't say that we've mastered it. In fact, it's an area that we're growing in. We work with a lot of people who I would say have mastered it, right?
Yeah.
So we see the gap and we help them master it.
Hang on a sec. Can you hear that, Daniel?
Yeah, I sure can. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, so there's a gap there. I think one of the keys, like what you experienced, Jim, was when we didn't try to do this ourselves. Like we collaborated with people who, like on the virtual event, that's their sweet spot, that's their thing. So we found a way to partner with them to handle a lot of those things. And I think that's a lot of the solution for a lot of this is don't try to do this on your own. I think that's a lot of people try to do that instead of collaborating.
Yeah.
And finding the who to get the how done.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the one thing that stands out as he's talking through this, because it's easy to see that and think, well, I'm overwhelmed. That's so much to do.
Yeah.
But the solution is to partner with people who know what they're doing in that space and shorten that learning curve.
Yeah.
Where do we find these people?
What was that, Beth?
Where do we find these people?
Where do you find the people?
He's saying to help us do that. Yep.
Yeah, Daniel's the first one.
Well, there you are.
So that's the thing. Daniel has worked with me on an ongoing basis. He also has worked with some of the other folks that have come to the summit. And they need a portion of what he does, and some of them would like all of it, but he's available like a la carte services or comprehensive services either way. And the whole point of Daniel's business is for you to be known.
Mhm.
You know, if it's like Jason, he's an entertainer, a musician, he's got math expertise. Jason could put together a webinar on the 5 things that most people don't understand about math that make it easier than you ever thought it would be. And he could do that and, you know, put it together and give it to other people to promote. And then afterwards, cut it into pieces and have it available as a PDF, as a handout, as a reminder tool, you know. So whatever we're doing, it's possible. Brian?
Well, first of all, I've just created your new handle, Daniel. It's going to be DA_Pope. Okay.
D-A' Pope.
Yeah, the Pope.
The Pope.
Yeah.
That works because my middle name is Alexander, so it's always been DePope.
There we go. Okay, so that's
You're wearing all white today too.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And the existing Pope is likely to retire before too long, so
There you go.
there's an opening.
There you go. So I think that's the new handle. Second of all, can you break us down some type of cost for your work?
Yeah. For that, you know, it really depends on, are you trying to get 50 people to watch a webinar? Do you need 50 people or do you need 500? And the reason I say that is because it depends on your offer price. And so I work with a client who absolutely needs 500 registrants each time because they're selling something for $47. And They don't understand the lifetime value, and that's okay. Not every business, wants to grow into that. But some clients I work with, they just need 5 people on, and that's because they're selling something for 5,000 all the way up to about $50,000. And so it depends on also if you already have a webinar in place versus is your business at what stage? Do you have an email list? Do you have traffic in? And so, it's a 4-figure investment. I will say that. I do work on a monthly retainer, but in some cases we operate on a lower fixed cost or flat rate with a gross profit share as well. So it's not custom for everybody. There are some standards, but it's not a $500 type of thing, but it's also not a $50,000 type of thing at all. Yeah. But Brian, I'd be happy to talk about that with you offline. Anybody there for sure.
Yeah.
I just
one
want
of the nice things about Daniel is he's not trying to create annuities out of his clients. He doesn't want you to become his income source ongoing unless he's able to serve you. So he's happy to do a project for you and have you graduate as a shining example of what he can do for people. So that it's not like one of some of these systems like Brian's told me about. You get in at this level and you say, I'm frustrated. I love this, but I'm not getting any results. Well, that's because you're not on the inner circle. Oh, so you upgrade to the inner circle and
Wait.
then not paying off. Oh, you should have gone platinum.
Yeah.
Because at platinum, you get, and then you go platinum. Oh, you know what? You need to be a double diamond. Because if you're a double diamond, then you get to come to the house, bring the kids, all this. And I've had people, there was a woman in Thousand Oaks came up to me a few years ago and she said, Jim, I built a pipeline that is absolutely beautiful. I've got all the moving parts. I know who my avatar client is. I'm doing all the things and I'm not making enough to meet the rent. I need to rethink what I'm doing for a living. So she had the machine in place, but she didn't have the reason for having the machine in place clear enough and compelling enough to make it all happen. And that's why what I do doesn't deal with the machine. I'm not interested in that side of the business. I want to deal with the reason for the machine. Why even have a machine? Maybe you could, buy an ox and that would do the job. But everything of mine starts with, what do you want? Why are you doing this? And by the way, I need to click on whatever is appropriate to get Joe Willard to join. I was thinking he would pop in to what we're doing right now, but I don't see him yet. So let me disengage with you, Daniel. And
Okay.
then if you want to come back in, you're welcome to.
We'll still be able to hear
Yeah.
him because all audio is going.
Say it again.
We can still hear him, so you can log off of there and we can still interact with Daniel.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So you may lose video from us, Daniel, but
Okay.
stick around.
Yeah, no problem.
There you go.
Mr. Pope, can you still hear us?
I sure can.
Awesome. Okay, who else has got questions for the Pope?
The Pope, can I ask you a question, Daniel?
Yes, please.
So really quickly, who's Todd yesterday? What was his last name? John.
Just a second. Join from room and as a companion, could that
I think so.
blend
It's
these?
the same meeting. He should be able to. Todd Duncan, you said.
I've done him.
So we were talking with Todd Duncan yesterday, Daniel. I don't know if you know him, and he was talking about an event that he hosted where there were 44,000 people attending.
Yeah.
A virtual event, and more I've heard of attendee sizes like that. Like Alex Hormozy had his book launch that had something like 100,000 or 200,000 people on there. Tony Robbins has multiple 6 figures too. Can you walk us, like, as much as you can without getting too specific in detail? How do people like that promote those events?
Yeah.
Like, what do they do to make it rain in such large numbers like that?
Yep. So they've put in the time and the money to do so. Oversimplified, but let's talk about tactics. So they're going to do one of 3 things, if not all 3. Alex, for example, he's done all 3. One is utilize his email list. And so he doesn't email it often if you're on his list, but he utilizes his email list.
Sorry about that.
All good. Can you still hear me though?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, and then utilizing paid ads. And so just rough math here, it's going to cost between 80% to 150% of the ticket price to get an attendee in using paid ads, and then referral and JV partners or affiliates. So, hey, I'll give you XYZ to promote this thing. And so you just scale that up, the flywheel gets spinning. And so powerhouses like Tony and Alex and this other gentleman, they utilize that type of stuff, but at a scale, and they have teams behind them that send out the promo emails, coordinate with affiliates, run the paid ads, and run it at a budget that. So it sounds simple. It is simple. It's just traffic sources, but they also work with specialists who specialize in those areas.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, I was out at Alex's mastermind in Las Vegas in November, and we got to sit down with his head of traffic, and he was talking about some of the ad budgets that they spend, and he was talking about how he manages a team of media buyers. So most businesses that I work with, we're the media buyer, we're the ad guy, but then I got to start to think about, all right, if I have teams and teams underneath teams, it was very fascinating to hear how they operate. Yeah, anything you want me to dive deeper on there?
Do you have any suggestions, Daniel? Like if I were to put on an event like this, not at that scale, but if I were to find a venue and I were to find what are the different components, like what are the different departments that are needed to put on an event like that? And so you mentioned the media buyer. How should I start thinking about those relationships? And should I set up a structure where like they take a revenue share of the success of the event?
So how many people would you like to have butts and seats? Just ballpark.
For a virtual event?
Yeah.
Like a live webinar?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a certain attendee
Yeah.
size?
Yeah, about 10,000 people.
Okay. So what I would do is if this is a webinar, a live webinar, then of course I'd be happy to talk offline about this with you, but I would look for a media buyer that charges flat rate plus a percentage of gross profit. There's going to be a lot of people that charge a percentage of ad spend. I think that's an old school model that just incentivizes you to spend more, not to get results. And so that's the first qualifier. You can quickly weed out the amateurs with people who just try to charge percentage of ad spend. And then the media buyer is most likely going to charge for your growth goal and for someone experienced in that, $2,500 to $5,000 a month. Now, with that being said, they can get really creative with the gross profit share, the revenue, the performance-based comp. Honestly, I would look at seeing how many referral partners or affiliates you could get promoting this as well and turn one registrant into 3 or 4 and incentivize the heck out of people referring. Because as much as we can reduce the ad costs, that's just money saved, money back in your pocket. But I have a calculator for this that I can share with you. We can talk through it on a call. I assume that was.
Hang up the phone call and stick with you on computer.
Amazing, Daniel. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, stay with us if you want to. Joe Willard is online.
Yeah.
And we're going to switch over to Joe as the primary. Joe?
Yes.
I told the people a bunch of stories about who you are. So, you're coming in with a stained reputation already. But
Sorry.
I want you to say hi to everybody. Let me introduce the folks. Can you see?
Your camera's off right
Okay, would you turn it on for me?
now. Oh, looks like I'm the first person. Hello.
Okay. Can you see me, Joe? Oh, yeah, there you
Yeah, yeah, like keep your wallets covered with that one.
go. Yeah, that's Jason Cathcart, my grandson, who you've met.
Of course.
This is Kira Ron. Kira's our videographer. Bill Blankshane of Story Builders, Nikki McQuistion, who has the Perspectives Matter PBS TV show where I'm co-host occasionally.
Yes,
Brian Livingston, you've met Brian Livingston.
hi, Brian.
Online, yeah, but Brian's from Canada and has a company where he represents people in court when they get traffic tickets. And his company,
Hey,
yeah,
I was
Traffic Ticket
looking,
Guru.
Jim, I was looking forward to being there and talking to him about Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, and here's Beth Robbins.
Hello?
And the big story, backstory on her, everything from performing on Broadway to being the newest certified professional expert along with Nikki McQuistion. And then here is Joseph Todd.
Hello, Joe.
And
Joseph.
he's from the Austin area. And his specialty is YouTube, but I'll let him elaborate on that as we get into dialogue. So that's us. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome my dear to the heart of my soul friend and number one mentor in my life. And you're ahead of Earl Nightingale, Joe.
Wow.
Number one mentor.
That's a lot.
I'm gonna help set up lunch. I think I'm retrieving it right now.
You're gonna help?
Lunch.
Oh, lunch, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay. All right, you're on, my friend.
Okay. I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Can everyone see this?
Yeah.
Wow, Earl Nightingale's strangest secret.
No. This is a cassette.
I still have many of them.
Yep. Nikki says she still has many of them.
Now, here's the problem. You can't find a car or a player to put it in hardly anymore. But you can take it to a local video shop and they will turn it to a CD, of which you can't play in a car hardly anymore either. But they'll do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
My dear friend Jim gave me this many years ago. And I tell you, I had every one of my staff put a post-it note on the radio. They could not listen to the radio. This is the only thing they could listen to. And it is absolutely amazing what Jim, the impact that Jim has had on me. And I thought I was having it on him. And sure enough, I did. However, I brought him into my organization to speak to the, no disrespect, but I brought him in to speak to the ladies because I was having an important meeting with the guys.
Insurance agency, 1970s. Yeah.
So I got such outstanding feedback that I can remember the very day I called Jim and we're in the office and I told Jim, I said, Jim, I'm going places. If you want to go, you best hook your wagon to my star because we're going places. And sure enough,
Yeah.
that's how we got started and what an impact he's had. Now, Jim mentioned a very important word, probably one of the most important words that I know of when people ask me about success. I share with them, it's a lonely job, success, when you're running your own organization. And what you will realize is the key is to find a mentor. And while Jim gave me the credit to be his mentor, along the way, he was also giving me the person that I needed on a local basis as a mentor. Now, I developed a big agency and realized I had no one to speak to about the issues I had. And I went to a mentor that he would not accept you if you were not, well, he wanted to see your financial state, or not your financial statement, but your IRS saying that you made a certain amount of money before he didn't accept you. And then you went 4 times a year to go see him at your own expense. And it was very expensive
Mhm.
at that time. However, if you really want to be successful, you're going to have a mentor, someone like Jim Cathcart. I applaud all of y'all for spending the money, putting your skin in the game to learn from someone like Jim Cathcart. You know, this is a career that you've made a decision to go into, which is a wonderful career because it's about helping people. And I do believe, my faith believes that we are put here to serve and help others. And I can't imagine a better way to do that than what y'all are doing. And what your commitment that you're making to spend time with a mentor. And Jim is that kind of mentor. You know, every day since I met Jim, I don't know whether you can see this, it's a little yellow postum sticker. And it says, "This is going to be the very best day of my life. 03/25/25 JDW."
Wow.
I write that every morning of my life. Now, I'm not Pollyanny. There are days are like, whoa, where did this come from? Like when you're sitting in front of a bankruptcy lawyer and discussing the fact that you owe $6 million and you don't have quite that much in your pocket.
Or when you have a
So,
staff member who's been embezzling from you and you discover that and you've got to restructure everything real fast. Remember those days? Yep,
real fast.
yep,
So, you know, we're all going to have those things in our life, but carrying this every day sets the stage. I don't think things happen by accident. I think if you're looking for them, they will appear. That's just my belief. I don't care if I'm looking for a parking space. I believe I'm fixing to find a parking space close to where I want to get out. And I'll be darned, there one appears. So I do believe that little cassette that I showed you,
Mhm.
you know, people say that, you know, the biggest fear is standing in front of an audience and speaking. I don't particularly believe that. I believe their biggest fear is how they will appear. And will they be ashamed of themselves for what they didn't know or say? And so you have to have someone like a Jim Cathcart in your life that, and by the way, I've got the greatest spouse, but I don't believe a spouse is a good mentor for the business aspect of your life. And Jim, I'm sure you've gone over the spokes of life, whether they be physical, personal, financial. Knowing you, if you haven't, you will. I don't think that success. I did not. I had the opportunity to go to college, and I did go to college for a semester. But I think that what it takes is something that it seems like the United States is really missing now, and that's the will to work. To be successful, you're going to have to work hard, real hard. And you're going to have to focus on those goals that you set for yourself. Those goals have to be written, that you understand what they are every day. And I don't think money is a goal in any form. Now, these are my opinions, by the way.
Yeah.
I would not allow anyone that worked for me to write down, I want to make $100,000. I wouldn't allow that. I would allow them to tell me what $100,000 would buy for them. And I didn't really care whether it was to go to Vegas and blow it or to build a new wing on the church. It didn't matter. What mattered was the picture that they could see, that space that they had it in their mind. Because your mind is got 99 trillion things running through it all the time. So you have to learn to really focus on those goals. And that's the reason that I think that I applaud all of you for being there with Jim as a mentor, because he can help you focus on those goals. If you ask people about their goals, everyone has goals. And they'll stutter a little bit to tell you what the goals are, because they're not sure they have so many of them in their mind. But they really should be on a to-do list and not a goal. A goal is something that you have to write down, visualize, and in my opinion, talk to constantly. It's, as I said earlier, post-it notes. I would check the guys' cars, and I'd want to see a post-it on the radio. No, listen to the radio when you're going to a meeting. No, listen to the radio when you're just out. I want you to be thinking about what you've written down there, and you can only have 5 of them, 5 goals. And they had to be something other than, I want to make X amount of dollars a year.
Joe, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
I want to elaborate on what you're talking about. When I met Joe, he had a sleepy little insurance agency that was just being turned around by him as the new general agent. They were thinking about closing the agency. Mass Mutual was in Tulsa. And Joe wanted to take a whole new approach and bring this creative energy into it. And so when he brought me in, my role was to be to address the loneliness factor of being the leader. I was his confidant. I was someone he could talk with openly, with complete trust about anything that was bothering him. And so we had that kind of a bond between us, which is tremendously valuable. And that way, if he was having difficulty communicating with Doug McDonald or motivating Robert Clemens or getting Chris to not go to Vegas with his big bonus check, or getting Bill Morris to think differently about everything, he could do it. He could talk with me about that. But in addition to that, Joe and I were both absolutely committed to personal development. He showed you what he's been doing for his whole adult life with that daily statement, this is going to be the best day. Joe has a number of things like that. It talks about what's important now, when he wants to reorient himself. WIN, what's important now? How would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do? Came from Joe Willard originally in this form. He said to me, Jim, long drawl in there, Jim. He said, when I started out as an agent, I wanted to be like all these big producers, these winners. I wanted to be knocking down big dollars and have everybody applaud me. So I asked myself, how would the agency sales leader do what I'm about to do. Like, how would the agency sales leader dress for work? What would be the first thing he or she would do in their day? How would they organize their files? How would they organize their car? Would they listen to the radio on the way to work, or would they get learning material and put it in the sound system on the way to work? And so Joe was the one that inspired me to come up with that statement that's throughout everything that I do. Thank you, my friend.
I would encourage all of you, if you have not purchased and executed the book on your strength finders, I would really encourage you to do that, because you're not as good as you have the potential to be, because most of us try to get a little bit better at what we're not good at, and that is foolish. That is a waste of time. What you need to be spending your time on is what you're good at, and a lot of time doing that. Jim would tell you that I spent many hours, many midnight hours at the office after everyone would leave. I'd be there Saturday morning early, and no one ever came to the office on Saturdays. Well, it got to the point when I started doing that, they all started doing that. So I'd really encourage you, by the way, to get the book on finding your strengths, or strength finders, I should say.
Let me interject another. Everyone else that ever tells you read Strength Finders, go to I've forgotten the guy's name that made that popular in a big way.
Buckingham.
Dr. Clifton's grandson.
Yeah, but hang on a second.
Marcus
Buckingham. Yeah,
Right.
I knew him slightly, but Joe and I both knew Don Clifton, who started it all. Dr. Don Clifton came to Joe's agency while I was there and spoke many times and spent a lot of private time with Joe. And then Dr. Clifton hired me at Joe's recommendation to go to Lincoln, Nebraska and train his executive team and facilitate their strategic planning. And then Dr. Clifton taught me to teach the concepts that are known as Strength Finder today. But Joe is thoroughly steeped in the understanding of that. Nikki?
I'm a certified Gallup leader.
What was that?
I'm a certified Gallup leader.
Oh, Nikki is a certified Gallup leader. So she's licensed or qualified to teach StrengthsFinder.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
I'm a trailblazer.
Yep, Trailblazer. That's one of their levels. Yep, like Ninja.
Yeah, Dr. Clifton would have me come up there and speak to the group a number of times on the basis that maybe it's colloquialism, but Joseph, Steve said you're from Austin. Are you from Texas?
I was originally born in Washington State, but I'm a native Texas now in every way. Driver's license, address.
Yeah, well, okay. You sound like Jim Cathcart. You can't wear those fancy boots and fancy hats and fancy shirts.
Oh, I just bought
Tell
a
me
hat.
about Texas
See
if you're
that?
not from Texas.
There's my
Yeah.
boot.
Texas. So
There's my
Dr.
buckle.
Yeah,
There's my buckle.
yeah,
Got
there it is, right there.
the fancy shirt.
With the yoke.
That's right.
So Dr. Clifton would invite me up because I was reared in the country, and I spent, well, that's not that important, but I was reared in the country, and so I had a lot of colloquialisms that were like when my mother remarried when I was 9, my stepfather, which was a great man, was a farmer rancher. And he would have me to get some of the farm hands that we brought in to help us with the crop season. And they all looked like they could not speak English. that I had long greasy hair, and I won't say what we call them, but they didn't speak English, and my dad used to say, Joe Dan, you get up there and I want these things done, and you have them to do them. And I said, well, which one should I have to do what? And he said, that's your job. He said, everybody, by the way, the only curse word I ever heard either with my parents say, my natural father was killed when I was just a baby. And so my stepfather and mother, the only word I ever heard them say was, he would say that to me, he'd say, everybody can do something damn good. Your job is find out what each one of them can do damn good. So part of y'all being there with Jim and certainly having the young lady helping you, I can't tell you how valuable that is. I mean, it's just beyond that, because we all want the same thing. We just don't know how to get there.
Yep.
So you've got a hand out like Jim, it just helps you get where you want to go.
That's beautiful. Any questions for Joe? Yeah, Joseph?
Yeah, hi, Joe. This is Joseph. So there's two things I'm curious about, and I'll put them both out there. Maybe you can pick which one you have a thought on. So I was fascinated by this idea of, you said what you had your employees do was put the sticky notes on the radio, and they only could pick 5 goals. I love activities like that. Is there anything else like that, like the sticky note that you write to yourself in the morning saying this is going to be the best day in your life? Was there anything like that that you continue to do or have done in the past that is like a very high leverage activity that has helped shape your mindset and your view on life?
Well, I have quite a few people who will send me their or ask me if I'll talk to their grandchildren, and because they're not sure where they want to go or what they want to do. And so I said, sure. So I'll visit with them and listen to them, because I think my belief system says that the answer, or the sale, I should say, is always in the questions. So your job then becomes to ask a lot of questions, and then you'll discover. So I would ask them about their goals. I don't know. Everybody asks people about their goals, and most people don't. They can't verbalize it, or they can't pull it out of their pocket. I would not. They knew that there were trouble in River City if I walked into their office and I did not see those 5 goals on their desk visually, where they could see them. Now, my desk was clean all the time.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see, I don't care if they had a big mess. All I wanted to make sure was those 5 goals were there, number one. Number two would be that I would not let them start their year without having those written goals and having a budget. Because as Jim said earlier, the first time a guy asked me about coming in the life insurance business, I told him I'd rather dig ditches and sell life insurance. I didn't want to do that until I started looking and reading, and went to visit one guy, and the secretary came in the insurance business, and the secretary came in and said, Mr. Wilson, your plane will be ready anytime after 2. And I thought, ooh, look out. Now, I'd always played sports, and I was good at sports, so I had a good coach always. And I wanted to go to work for that guy, and he didn't want to hire me, but I prevailed. And so again, I wanted to have a different insurance agency. I wanted to be in the business market. Well, how can you do that if you don't have written goals and if you don't have a budget? People don't have budgets. No wonder they end up where they end up. And we have a beautiful life. We're born, we have a beautiful life, and we die. All that is beautiful. But it's because you make it and see it that way. And that's why I'm redundant when I keep referring to Jim. I didn't say someone like Jim, but Jim is the only one that I know, and y'all know him, and you're there, and you got skin in the game. But to get where you want to get, I guess it's like a mountain climber. You got to have someone on the rope in front of you, helping you along the trail. And if you don't know where you're going, any old road will get you there. So that when they would ask me, or when I would ask them about their goals, they didn't know. That's why so many of them would stay and get their MBA, because they didn't know what they're going to do other than have to go to work when they got out. So I would ask them, Joseph, hey, could you tell me, you're 25, tell me what you see when you're 35. Describe yourself when you're 35. That was pretty easy for them. They could start talking and verbalizing how they could see themselves. Well, then that was pretty easy for me to help them develop a goal about how to get there. So that's probably it. The one thing that I'll finish up on this, Jim, is that, if you meet someone, all of you, if you meet someone on a plane or at a cocktail party, the most important word in the English language is someone's name. And most of us forget their names. Oh man, I'm bad at games. Don't ever say that. Don't argue for your weaknesses. Say, I'm good at names. All you have to, you didn't hear it, first of all, because you're worried about telling them your name. So ask them again. Tell me again what you'd like to be called. Because 20 to 25% of the population are called by names that prefer not to be called by, or that prefer to be called by another name. Good example is Joseph and Joe. I worked with a company back east for 36 years. Every letter I got from them was to Joseph or Joseph Daniel, because they were all Catholics. I'm not Catholic.
Yeah.
And my name is Joe, Joedan. That's my name. That's it. Well, I have friends who call me Jose. I have friends who call me Big Joe. I have friends that call me other names I can't say on the air. But the point in that is that name is very important. Second thing is, just ask someone, hey, tell me about a success story in your life. Oh, what do you mean, like in business or in, what do you mean? I said, well, I'll give you an example, but it's your interpretation, not mine, that I'm asking for. Man, I won a blue ribbon with a Jersey Sow when I was in 4-H. And I won a second place when I was showing calves in FFA. Now, I can go on for about an hour telling you about all my success stories like that. Well, some people, it's hard for them to get that out. Third thing is to say, okay, let's turn that around. Tell me about a turning point in your life. And let them tell you. It's shocking what you'll hear. Fourth thing is, what is your hot button? well, what do you mean hot button? Oh, what turns you on, turns you off, you know? Like for me, it'd be integrity. Worst call I think I've ever made was last Friday when I called Jim, says, Jim, I'm not coming. I just left the doctor, 2 doctors. They said I can't fly for 2 months because of my legs. I just flew back from China after 3 days, and I was supposed to have been there for 3 weeks. So what's your hot button? And they tell you. Okay, then the final thing is, instead of asking for goals, I might say, well, tell me about your goals in life. Oh, let's turn that around. Tell me what your dreams are in life. Now, you ask those questions. Those are very easy questions, Joseph. You got to keep your mouth shut. But you ask those 5 questions, you'll know more about that person than some of his closest friends. And you'll be endearing to that person because you show you really care because you know so much about him, other than where he lives, where he works.
Yeah, where y'all, right? Good old Southern greeting. Where y'all from? We're from a place where they don't end their sentences in prepositions. Oh, I'm sorry. Where y'all from, bitch? You know, that was a line from the TV show Designing Women.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, Joe, this is brilliant and beautiful. We're gonna have to break for lunch here. But my gosh, you have imparted the wisdom that I grew up on with you and done it in such a nice way. And I really appreciate you making time to be available by Zoom today.
Thank you, guys. I'm so sorry I'm not there. I'm telling you, you just can't realize how sorry I am. I'm not there. For Jim Cathcart to buy me a hotel room and lunch
There
and
you
dinner.
go.
Oh, man.
Well,
All right. Love you
love
guys.
you, Joe Willard. I do.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Let's see. Let me figure out how to end this.
Yeah.
End meeting.